Bang. All runners have assembled, and we're off and running again. This is the final September Keeneland yearling sale broadcast conversation with the team assembled, and all the runners are here. Personal story I'm going to share that's going to be quick. We've compared the Keeneland September yearling sale to a marathon. I've run one in my lifetime. It was the Boston Marathon a long time ago. And I was hurting by mile 10. And then we hit Wellesley College. And the co-eds came out, and I found a second wind, as it were. I'd have to say our first week was the first 10 miles of the Boston Marathon. We killed it. We might have felt a little bit on the side of things, just like David audibly did just a second ago. And then I'd say about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon, we hit Wellesley College. Corey and David and the rest of the crew that were still at Keeneland hit Wellesley College, because it has been it's been a slog. It's 2 weeks of a lot of hard work and a lot of analysis. And this is our 6th call to you all, including the short list calls and the first week calls. And we're here to give you sort of a final synopsis, we believe. And we hope in the end that you felt better informed, that you considered the horses that you want to get involved with. And we'll try to continue in that vein today. We're glad to have David and Gordo here, as well as the rest of the team. His take is invaluable, and I know he is probably still doing some work over at Keeneland, so we appreciate his time. Terry and David, I think I want to call both of you in because you've been the ones that have been there most consistently. David, you were on the record saying that you felt like this was our best group of Group 1 and Group 2 yearlings that we've come away with. How about this second wave, this second wind, this post-Wellesley College group that we've picked up?
Well, it's funny you say hitting the wall and all that, because last night I took Reagan to dinner, Cherie's at Ellis Park, breezing horses, and I fell asleep at the stoplight waiting to go to Frank and Dino's. And Reagan's like, Dad, you gotta. So, and that was about 6:30 last night. So I hit the wall last night pretty hard myself, but I got a good night's sleep and I'm ready to go. To answer your question directly, every year we get better, and you have to. So every year, with West Point and Terry's leadership, we're bringing in new partners. We're raising more money. We're getting to go after the best horses. And, my part in that is to make sure I keep improving. And we are. And, whether it's, we added another week of farm looks this year. So we looked for 3 weeks, not 2. We dove in on pedigree research even deeper than normal. We dove into some of the breeder statistics. Every time we're bringing another layer of, refinement to this, because what Terry and all the West Point team for the partners is doing is bringing us more funds to spend, and more money, more problems is a joke I heard in a movie once. But when you have more money to spend, you've got to hit the ball dead center. And I think this year, time will tell, but I give this effort we put in as a team, and from our standpoint in the buying end, I put it at A++. Best of sale, highest rating I can give it. I think we hit it. Just dead center and out of the park. And the prospects we have, I don't know what's sold out or not yet, but every horse we have, I can look any partner in the eye and know that we went into it saying, for this price point, this is a gotta-have horse. And we missed out on a lot of horses. We move this market tremendously every day because the partners see what we bought, but they're not seeing the ones we stretched and didn't get, or the ones we passed on for whatever reason. So everybody should be commended. This is, without a doubt, I think the best we've ever done.
My rugby captain always said, you can sleep when you're dead. You're far from it. So just keep on keeping on, David. And thanks for your monumental efforts this year. Terry, too, was at Keeneland through the weekend, got some great video of Dale Romans celebrating the stretch ride victory and doing the work of evaluation, as was David. And, you know, he got some real feedback from trainers like Cherie DeVoe and John Sadler and Dale Romans and Christophe Clement and Dallas Stewart. And so with that in mind, Terry, tell us about how we approached putting things together as we went into this second week of the sale.
Yeah, Jeff. Well, I tell you, thank you for everybody for jumping on, the partners especially, and to David and the West Point team. It harkened back to 2017. I'll be very brief, but we all went up to the hotel fair up at West Point, and it was at the end of 2016. We were getting ready for our season 2017, and as a group, we came together and said, one, that we needed to bring more dollars to the table, and that was really the start of, all right, what do we need to do, and intentionally to bring in additional dollars, and we also determined that we were going to bring David and Gordo onto the team to really lead and to be point of the buying process. So if you look back, I think this September, I think overall was a culmination of those 6 years of really working on our alliances, as David just said, improving every sale and every season. And I think now what we've seen and what we saw in September was, you didn't have a whole lot of input or activity from Coolmore. You didn't have I'm talking about on the buying side. I know they sold a bunch of horses, but you also didn't have that much activity on the Darley, on the Godolphin, on the Arab side. So all of a sudden, we're in a position where we have breeders, we have other owners, and we have a big group of our partners that are coming together. And I do believe that we took some horses that, if they turn out, are going to go back to Kentucky in the coming years as stallions and as really top end broodmare prospects. So I just love the fact that there aren't very many times when plans really are executed on in the business, and that they come out on the other side and things are as good as they are now. But I look back to that meeting in 2016, and I just smile the fact that all these things now, that have been percolating, they've all come together, and now we look forward to the future with a lot of optimism and excitement, and it's a thrilling time.
David, it's that fault. It's the fault of that meeting that you're with your tongue out right now, trying to pant that last 10 yards of the marathon here. But it's been joyous, at least for us.
Yeah, I'm fit, Jeff. You ain't got to worry about me.
All right, so we got a lot to cover in a relatively short period of time. We're going to work on talking about the new horses. And any horses that we still have a little bit of availability from that first week, the first two books 1 and 2. A number of those horses have sold out, including the sales topper, the Into Mischief colt out of Nanamia. But we will talk about horses that still have availability today. We'll start with a colt by Hardspun, hip 1623. Dale Romans and Terry kind of honed in on this particular colt over the weekend. A spectacular individual from just a better than solid, just so consistently high quality sire who's really good to West Point. Obviously, David was instrumental in buying Hard Not to Love, who is a hard spun filly. Terry Finn, I'll let you start. Tell us a little bit about this colt from the Royal Oak Farm consignment and the group that came together, CJ Stables, which is Corey Johnson. He was a former exec at Lone Star and Kentucky Downs. And of course, St. Elias, Vinny Viola, and West Point. So that's a lot to cover in a short period of time here.
I'll be very quick. So Vinny Viola and I talked to Saratoga, We knew we were going to send a horse to Dale Romans. We just had to find one. And in the ensuing couple of weeks between Saratoga and the September sale, Vinny adjusted the program. And so now, just about every horse he bought at September was a horse that was bought in partnership. So we got first dibs at the vast majority of those. I was in constant contact with Rory Babbage, who was really the manager of the St. Elias team. I said, this was one a couple days in the sale that we both landed on. He's a beautiful horse, raw, rough, tough. So we were there. So we bought the horse, and then CJ, right, who's had horses with Dale Romans for years, they've been wanting to partner up for, I don't know, last 5 or 6 years. And I thought this was a perfect way to start. So that's kind of the organic way that the partnership came together on this really exciting and I think beautiful and, sound looking and athletic looking hard spun colt.
David, what is it about hard spun? I know you like that stallion quite a bit.
Yeah, and I love this particular horse. Terry, not say pull rank since we're a military background organization, but Terry told me he needed this one for a different group, so that was fine. And it's a lovely horse. He's country, I call it. Raised really well. I've been lucky with Royal Oak, and hard spun is, he's not a blue chip sire or a blue collar. He's on the verge of being an elite sire, and I could see a son of hard spun being a stallion. You put the pedigree up. I used to groom Creaking Board when I worked for Bobby. She came in. She came in from France, I think it was. So this is a good pedigree and a good horse.
Very good, thank you. We're going to move on because we got to be fairly efficient here. We'll turn now our attention to HIP 2290. This is a colt by Liam's Map that's going to go to Christophe Clement. Christophe signed a ticket, but David and Gordo, this was a Lane's End yearling that, because they're chewing on grass and hanging out by their moms right outside your window there at Lane's End. I think this yearling fairly well.
Yeah, he is another one that I've loved, and Christophe liked him, so we deferred to him. We got to get him a couple of runners every now and then. And this guy it fits that mold. He's, we'll talk about what a good one looks like by a sire and what, maybe we don't want. And I think on our stallions, specifically at Lane's End, we have a little more knowledge than the average horse buyer does. So there's a good Liam's Map, and there's a Liam's Map that I don't, might not want to buy myself. Even though the market might accept them. This horse is what I call a good Liam's Map. He reminds me a lot of the colt that Christophe has won first time out at Saratoga, and might even have a little turf influence. I think Liam's Map can do both. He's a dual option stallion, dirt or turf.
That's a good synopsis. I'm going to move on to a filly, our first filly to discuss, and this is one we bought last Saturday. A filly by champion 2-year-old Game Winner to be trained by, I think David's familiar with Cherie DeVoe. And that happened to be the same day that Cherie got her first Grade 1 win, one of many to come. It was the first one of her career. It was with a 2-year-old named She Feels Pretty in the Grade 1 Natalma at Woodbine, right about the same time or just before. I think it was after Carson's run won his Grade 1. And David, your wife, Cherie, has been on a roll. She has something like 6 stakes winners over the past 2 months. What's that been like for you, seeing everything come together? Because I know you've been really specific about your contributions to the barn. Kibitzing, counsel when asked for, but Cherie is calling the shots here. And where does this filly fit into her program and by proxy, your program?
I like sports analogies, and with a lot of these trainers, I always, joke, but on a square, you have to have an offensive coordinator. You have to have a defensive coordinator. Somebody has to be on offense. Somebody has to be on defense. What are those positions in horse training and horse buying? And, I think the horse training is offensive, and Cherie calls the plays on all these horses. I know what her plans are every so often, just like I would with John Sadler or, when I was around Chad Brown, or even Asmussen, if I'm involved, they'll ask an opinion. And every once in a while, you need to maybe say, hey, not trying to step on your toes, why don't you think about this or that? And then on the buying side, that's what I call the defense, even though it's offensive 1A, because you're really trying to recruit these horses. You've got to get the players that fit whatever trainer you're working for and their style. And so, Cherie and her style really mimics like John Sadler the most and of other trainers we deal with. So they get along really well and they like the same kind of horses and stuff. And I tend to buy or recommend a horse for Cherie that will look like the picture you just showed. It'll run plenty early. That could be a Saratoga filly. No doubt. She should have enough speed to, go 6-7 a mile. And then hopefully as she becomes 3, we'll get her on the trail, the Oaks Trail, which in a short time, Cherie's had 2 fillies that got going in that direction, and Baroness and then Baba. Both ended up being better going shorter. But a filly like this strikes me as one that will go long. She's got that shoulder, the length. That's a good picture up there of her if it loads. That shoulder, that neck, that head, that profile. Excuse me. I think Game Winner's a sleeper stallion, believe it or not. The horse was 2-year-old champion, stood for 30,000. I don't think he got the oomph that Authentic did or a couple of them, but he's a sire of sires. He's by a sire of sires in Candy Ride, out of an AP Indy mare. All important to me. He's got Indy and Charlie in his pedigree, which, is one of our go-tos anymore. Filly's correct, got great bone, good feet, was well raised. This is the kind Cherie wants in the barn. This is the kind we do well with. And it's very exciting. And she's at a phenomenal price point. I mean, some of these buys we got because of when we bought them. They were little, not light spots, if you will, but maybe people were eating lunch. People were looking for the next day. This horse, you could argue, was pushed a little too far forward. I think she would have brought 50 to 100,000 more later in the book. So,
tell you what, David, just interject for a second. I know the pedigree is nothing the same. This filly reminds me, just in this video, and you saw her on the shank, etc., of Soho. She's got that beautiful scope and range and just elegance to her. Is that far off?
No, I think that's a good comparable, because I think Soho is what this filly can be. An early, early for us in the program, and I think even the whole West Point program is Del Mar, Saratoga. I don't think we're not going to stand in their way if they run 4 furlongs at Keeneland, or maybe have some kind of Ascot horse. But our bread and butter is a summer 2-year-old and then into their 3-year-old years and trying to campaign them. And, I look at this filly as an Oaks prospect, and she's got the scope, the size, the pedigree's there. I love Medaglia as a broodmare sire. I'm taking a lot of time on this one, but you've hit on a horse I really like. And, I said to Terry, listen, I need this one for Cherie and West Point, not just, so I love all our other trainers. I do love one more than others, I'll be honest, but for their training, but in other ways. But, all kidding aside, this is a lovely horse, and she needs a good name. Pop that pedigree back up for a second, because there was something on there I noticed I wanted to talk about. I have a theory that's proving out about the Candy Ride line, specifically Twirling Candy, with anything El Prado, Medaglia, all the way back Sadler's Wells. And the cross here is very interesting to me. Candy Ride himself does great with Gone West. And then you're down with one of the foundation mares of our breed in Corvea. So this is a hell of a pedigree, and she'll have great residual value. And I like the fact that the sister ran and set a track record. That's a real time that she ran that distance in. So I'm done babbling about this one.
You did fine. And I like everything that you said about her, because I love her look. Let's move up next to a colt by Frosted out of a mare named Super Espresso. That's hip 1933. It's amazing. It is a small world racing. Bobby Flay raced Super Espresso. He's been breeding her. She was a 7-figure yearling and then a Grade 3 stakes winner. And now this colt looks the part from the Stone Farm consignment that also sold us Bobby Flay bred First Captain and Sedona. Like I said, Terry, it is a small world, but I know that you have no qualms. In fact, great enthusiasm about buying from an outfit like Stone Farm.
Yeah, they do such a great job. I know the Hancocks. It's been in the family. That land in particular, and you look at the good horses that really comes from that vein, like around that part, right? Sienna Farm, or not Calumet, but Claiborne. So they're all clustered together. There's something going on with the water and the ground and the soil out there, right? They produce a lot of good horses, right? This was a rough and tough horse, had as good of a walk as I've seen, and just like a horse that you said, like, here's a horse I could see, who's gonna improve and get better and better. We raised the right way in the right hands, so like a lot going for a beautiful colt like this, and we thought he was a very fair price in the ring as well.
Tommy Bellhouse, Christoph was outspoken on this colt. His take?
Yeah, I think he followed right along what David just said about the game winner, that Medaglia d'Oro dam sire. You look at Super Espresso, she was as you say, 7-figure yearling. She comes from the family of Althea, and a sister to Twining. This guy, as an individual, is so exceptional with that kind of pedigree on the dam side. I think it's super exciting, and he could be anything. I just the size and scope of him, you got to believe he's going to run all day.
Excellent. Wanted to hear from the man who works with Christoph on a pretty regular basis, and is tied into that barn. Next up is a colt from the first crop of the Horse of the Year, Authentic. This is the third Authentic colt that we've been able to land. So, we like it. We like what we're seeing from him. And this colt will be trained by Cherie DeVoe. The hip number is 2485. David, the Authentics, we figured that they were going to be promoted and prominent. He's a Derby winner. He's by Into Mischief. Spendthrift has him. They promote and breed extremely well to promote their stallions. But this is a case where his yearlings, I think, at least in the way they've looked, really fit the bill.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where the advertising matches the reality. We all know how advertising is, and they put the good face on things. Yeah, everyone does. All of us included. But I like it when a horse lives up to it. And it's funny, I went to Spendthrift to visit their yearlings that they're selling for September, and Saratoga, actually. And before the Saratoga sales, whenever I went to a farm that stood stallions, I went and looked at a few choice offerings. So I looked at Into Mischief again, and I looked at Authentic, and I looked at Vacoma, and just to familiarize ourselves with them one more time. And I was driving out the gate of Spendthrift, and I said, David, I want to buy an Authentic or two, because you start looking at it, he had a pretty darn good record. By Into Mischief, who, has done with limited chances, had a couple of sons that are okay as stallions from like as early a return as possible. And now he's getting these better classic type horses that have some speed, which Authentic fit all that criteria, that stayed 1.25 miles. I wanted to find one, and we found a couple good ones up at Saratoga. And the ones earlier in the book, we had something like that already. So I wanted to find one with a bit of value, and I love this pedigree. And this colt came along, and we actually outbid Calumet Farm for him. And the guy that does all the bidding looked over and he said, "Are you trying to buy this one?" I said, "Yeah, for my daughter." And he stopped. So I saved us. Reagan might have saved me a year or two's tuition at her school. by getting Eddie to pull up on the bidding. And, that happens sometimes when people are there and, I'll owe him a favor somewhere down the line. But, hopefully we're in the winner's circle with this one and it all made sense.
As I say, it's a small world that we're in right now. Glad to be a part of it. Let's move on to liking too. That's hip 2332. Kitten's Joy he was a distinctive looking horse. Was not a plain bay by any stretch of the imagination. And Jason Blewett, this is Kitten's Joy to a T, is he not?
No, he absolutely is. And you're talking about an OG stallion that certainly has left. I mean, sadly, he's passed on, but he has certainly left his mark on the breed. And, I often think about in the last decade plus, there has been this paradigm shift where turf racing has really come to the fore, and it's a lot more important than it was even around the turn of the century. So you've got that going for you. And I'm reminded, looking at him and thinking about him and even talking about him, I mean, not for nothing, we're coming off a weekend of racing where Christophe Comant, for a horse that didn't cost an arm and a leg, just won another grade 1 for West Point with Carson's Run, and another Breeders' Cup win in your in race. That's 2 for the Comant barn in about 3 weeks or so, which is unprecedented with Carson's Run. Looking back and, thinking of David, and I always like hearing, him talk in general about anything to do with this industry and racing, but, his ties to working with Bobby Franco and just having had the hands-on experience he had in Bobby's barn. Medaglia d'Oro has been mentioned on this call numerous times. And although I was probably a bigger Empire Maker fan when he was racing as a 3-year-old, I didn't have to go all that far back in the pedigree to see the second dam and just how prolific she has been, and one of the toughest horses in this horse's pedigree, and maybe one of the toughest horses I've ever seen when the money was on the line, happened to be Peace Rules, who Bobby had at the same time he had Empire Maker. I mean, he had both of them in that 3-year-old class back in 2003. So pedigree's there. Christophe gave his stamp of approval. And I was wondering, David, just with you going back and seeing Peace Rules, how about elaborating on the pedigree for a horse that, to my eyes, looks like a real value play?
So I actually have Medaglia d'Oro's trophy at my house that Bobby got for the Travers. And I got to see him. I went up to David Vance's barn. David Vance has no idea who I was then or probably now. And Bobby had an agent buying the horse, but he says, go look at this horse. I don't trust this guy. Go look at him and tell me how good looking he is. They tell me how good looking he is. You go make sure you go look at him. So I drove up and I saw Medaglia, and to this day, he's one of the top horses I've ever seen in the flesh. And in my top 10, the next one is Empire Maker, because I saw him as a 2-year-old at Juddmonte before he ever left the farm. Peace Rules was a little, I call him like a Bonnie horse. He wasn't, it's like a bunch of good looking guys go to the bar, and then I went with them. And, I was Peace Rules compared to Empire Maker and Medaglia d'Oro. But he was a tough horse. Oddly enough, Maggie Moss owned Peace Rules, and Gary Contessa trained him, and Bobby bought the horse off of them after he won his maiden. And I wish I had the facts that Maggie sent Bobby, because he said, I bought this horse cheap. And Maggie sent him a scathing fax that, that might be cheap to you. It's not cheap to me, blah, blah, blah. So, and Maggie and I were joking about it the other day because Cherie trains a few for her. But Peace Rules was tough. I love seeing him in a pedigree. There's a lot of nice horses on this page that didn't cost a lot of money. That Arm Candy, I liked her at the 2-year-old sale. I just didn't buy her. I didn't have enough clients at that time. Runway Ready just had another stakes placed horse by Twirling Candy out of here on the grass. So this pedigree is live. It's got a lot of good things going on, and it got us to talk about all our favorite things, including Empire Maker. Bobby Frankel and Medaglia d'Oro.
Good
Well
job.
done, both of you. Nice work. Okay, thanks, guys. Let's move on to a horse that I did a little bit of a prequel or a precursor to on Chatter today. You can read the post, how there are eerie signs by comparison for hip 2691 to our old friend Commanding Curve. This is a colt that is a spectacular individual. Let's go back into the background a little bit more, because every good horse has a story, and there's a pretty amazing one to go along with this one. We bought the mare. We own the mare to this colt. We own it. We bought him like a decade or more ago, thinking that his half brother or his relative was going to be something very special. Turned out being okay, but not special. We bought the mare cheap. She's thrown a bunch of horses in the interim period. We're talking a decade or more. And we've sold every single one of them. Every single one of them. And this one came down the pike, and we've obviously watched him for a while now. And there was something about him. That is the phrase for him. There's something about him. As my dogs go crazy. That Aaron Birkenauer and Terry and the rest of the team and yours truly, we're all like, no, we're not gonna, if he sells for $800,000, fine, but we're not gonna sell this one unless it's the right price to take. And so, David, I know you and Archie St. George both counseled, especially Aaron and Terry, in that same sort of way. There is something about this colt. There's something about him. And Union Rags, of course, is kind of cold right now. That's another reason why he didn't go for 800,000 or whatever.
I'll jump in on this because I use my favorite, line, which is true when I have a client that's bred a horse that for whatever reason, the market does not appreciate it. And I told Terry, listen, you better keep this horse. If you sell him, I'll probably buy him, and then you'll want to fire him. So let's just skip that step. And the last time I did that was with a client named Ian Banwell. We had a horse called Mr. Commons, and I actually did buy him. And I said, look, you better take the horse back. And the horse almost made $1 million, multiple graded stakes winner, multiple grade one place, ran the Preakness. And this horse reminded me of that. I've looked at everything out of the mare, and this is her best foal. Union Rags has got plenty of good horses out there. I bought numerous graded stakes winners, including grade one winner Express Train by Union Rags. Why the market gets off the horse, I have no idea as a sire, but I think they're wrong. And this one's bred the right way. He's raised the right way. I go to Archie's on a regular basis. That picture there is a very good representation of the horse. He's got a beautiful head on him. Got this body that Indian Charlie puts on him. Looks very sound, got great bone, good feet. I mean, we're trying to buy these. If the market isn't going to give you the money that he should get for it, then go beat him. Take him and go beat him with this horse, because I think that's what will happen.
We've come up with a lot of potential names for him, including something about him, or this horse, or go beat him. I love it. He's a horse that that's been in my mindset and in conversations with Aaron in particular for days now. So I'm delighted. He's going to Dallas. We've already had some Commanding Curve people that have jumped in on him, which I think is kind of neat too. Just a really great story to continue to tell with hip 2691. And as David mentioned, he's out of an Indian Charlie mare. We love Indian Charlie mares. We love them. So there you go.
I want to throw a name in there, Return to Sender.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't know if you could get it or not, but I like that one. Anyway.
All the Elvis fans will have snapped it up. Okay, let's move on to 1142. A filly by the name, she doesn't have a name yet, but she's sired by Medaglia d'Oro out of Z Drop, going to Arnaud Delacour. She was raised at Lane's End. So, David, I think it's appropriate for you to talk about this Gage Hill which is a breeding organization that is made up of Lane's End and West Point partners. They bred her, and sort of the thought process in buying her relatively late in the first week, Saturday, I believe.
So I'm agnostic about a horse when it comes on the ground. There's no, for me, and anyone that knows me well knows that you cannot force me to look at or buy or be involved in something I'm not really interested in. And I know I've kept up with the horse because of Gage Hill and West Point. I know her. She reminds me a lot, and I think it's a coincidence from my end because I didn't know what trainer was getting her, of the filly that Arno has by Mr. Speaker. Same body type, same sort of look. Might be grass also down the line, but doesn't have to be. And for this money, again, this is a huge pedigree. She's bred. The rating for her pedigree is one of the higher ones that I give out. Lemon Drop Kid's phenomenal broodmare sire. We've talked about Medaglia now again multiple times. He's the name du jour here, and it's all dirt family down below under Wickedly Wise. I bought Wicked Miz for someone. I sold Wickedly Perfect to Japan for another client. So you've got a phenomenal pedigree at a very low price point. She's sound. Her vetting was good. She's got a little this or that, but at this price point, I would be very upset to have let her go. And I would be very upset that she beats us with someone else. So as Steve Asmussen jokes, you're never beaten by the ones looking through your own webbing. And I'm glad she's going to be looking through our webbing.
I've never heard that line, but it's very Steve. That's good. Tom Bellhouse, let's move on to our Cantheros New York bred colt that Christoph bought out of the New York bred sale. That's the reason we're kind of going to you directly, because you were on the grounds along with David and Terry, et cetera, and the team and Jason. But you were there and maybe can offer up some insight into the colt by Cantheros that we jumped in on to take a piece of from Christoph.
Jeff, there's the Cantheros and there's the Lauban, are both colts that we got involved with at that New York bred sale at the middle of August. And, the thing about both of these colts, they're both Kentucky pedigrees on New York breds. You have Cantheros out of the Broken Vow mare. If you go back on the dam, you're looking at the family, a Phipps family, a pennant champion. I mean, these are not New York bred pedigrees. These are pedigrees. The Lauban who moved to Kentucky, is out of a Smart Strike mare, and the second dam is by Seattle Slew. These are not your mom and dad's New York breds that we're used to up here. I mean, in both cases, the breeder stayed involved. Both horses are going to Christoph. Both are priced, I think priced perfectly for the New York bred program. And, we're down to less than 25% on both of them. And if you want a New York bred, these are the kind of horses that we're gonna have, that we're gonna be campaigning, whether it's on dirt, grass, or maybe even synthetic by the time these are 3-year-olds. So really excited about both of these prospects. We love having New York breds in the program. And as David Ingordo taught me over the summer, you buy the good ones as yearlings, and then you tell the consignor on the not good ones, you bring them back as 2-year-olds, I'll pay a premium on them. The good news is we didn't have to pay a big premium on these two, and they're both going to be really fit wonderfully in the Christoph's program.
That's a good synopsis. Thank you. And, I'm glad David's having a positive influence on you as opposed to a negative influence on you. Well done. We're visiting a few of the earlier, the first week, book 1 and 2 colts that still are some tiny bits available. There's the Candy Ride out of the grade 1 winner Magic Star going to Steve Asmussen. And David, how much does this colt look like Gun Runner and the good Candy Rides that you've seen and been involved with, given his Lane's End connection?
So I was actually talking to Twirling Candy's trainer there, John Sadler, and that was one of the first transactions I did for Lane's End, was to go buy Twirling Candy. And at the same time, there was another candy ride there called Sydney's Candy. And then we also had Rock Your World down the line. So I've had like tremendous success with Candy Ride. And this body that you just put up is what they look like. The pedigree cross is there, but the physical's got to be there. He's kind of a chestnut Rock Your World. Lots of stretch, lots of scope. Got the great frame on him, and he's got the build for the muscle to fill into it once we get him in training down at Dr. Eisman's and start putting the miles under him. Saw him on the farm, actually exactly where they're showing this video. I was standing under that tree when he walked out that you just walked by. And this was a horse that stood out in my mind as a horse that I like. This is my type. This is a type that all of our trainers can excel with. And then when you throw in the pedigree and how he's raised and all that good stuff, it was pretty exciting to get him. And I'm a little surprised it didn't cost more money, you know. Not that what we paid for him is not a lot, but in the market we were in, I thought, man, this one could get out of range even with the group we put together. And I'm extremely happy that we didn't. The mare died, which is sad. It basically guarantees he will be a good horse whenever that happens. You know, but I remember I was sitting in Salivo when she won her maiden, and I was like, man, that's a nice horse. And I remember looking up the pedigree and seeing it was Don Alberto and everything like that. And I followed her. And then, you know, when I saw this guy come out, like I say earlier, it was okay, this is on the short list. I don't even think I looked at him again at the sale until when I was going over the short list because I knew I liked him. I just turned to vetting on him.
The mare is actually famous. If you Google her, there's some pretty neat pictures of her at Churchill.
Oh, very cool.
You know the ones where David Cohen's flying through the air?
Oh, yeah.
That's her.
We always try to add a little spice like that. Thanks for reminding us. Okay, so just two more to talk about that have a tiny bit from that first week, books 1 and 2. There's the Quality Road out of March Express. This is the same sire as obviously our budding star Integration, and you know, the winner of the Preakness this year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Joe Bianca, I know you have some pretty good insight on the mare March Express as well.
Yeah, so actually I did a story on her when I was at the TDN in my past life before West Point, and she was the owner's first purchase. She cost about $75,000 or so, and she would break out of the gate slowly. And he told me in her first start, she broke like 5, 6, 7 lengths slow. He goes, "What the hell did I get myself into?" And then she comes flying with this monster late run to win, to get up going 5.5 furlongs at Saratoga. She did the same thing next time out in the Bolton Landing Stakes. She just had this phenomenal closing kick. And she always sticks out in my mind because of that story I did. But she was obviously a really nice horse and a really nice young broodmare because she's only had one foal to race so far. And it's a super, super nice horse in Fort Bragg. I think he's been a little bit unlucky this year, not to be a multiple graded stakes winner, but he did win the Dwyer wore down Saudi Crown in a really, really fast renewal of that race. He was a tough luck second in the Pat Day Mile. I mean, he's one of the top one-turn 3-year-olds in the country this year. So she's obviously got a ton of potential as a broodmare. And if you just look at the horse, man, he's like an oil painting. Like, he's just so beautiful and so strong and so perfectly balanced that, you know, I don't want to pick favorites because these are all like my babies already, but he is right up there among the top 2 or 3 horses that we bought at this sale. I'm just totally in love with him, and you know, can't wait to see what he does for Shug. Also wanted to mention, David, I looked it up, and Return to Sender is available for the Union Magazine.
There we go.
Heard that.
Do we have is there a contest for naming one? Do we get like $100? That's what we used to have in a Judmont. If you name one, you got a prize. So
We'll send you a hat. We'll send you a West Point hat, dude.
Oh, yes. All right. I don't have one.
Finally, the Uncle Mo out of Diva Delight with the pedigree that does not stop. That is incredible and is current because, you know, her son Verifying won the Indiana Derby this year and is, you know, he was a Derby starter, et cetera. This is an Uncle Mo colt that projects all the things that you want from Uncle Mo. Jason Blewett is our resident expert. Your honor, Your Honor.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, you know, with my connection to Mike Rapoli, I got to see Uncle Mo up close and personal throughout his career. I will say, this is a horse. I mean, the pedigree speaks for itself. Half the Midnight Bizou, who will probably be a first ballot Hall of Famer in her first year of eligibility. You've got verifying. So as David usually says, you've got an active pedigree here. But I was downstate. I took the ride down from Saratoga late last week, came down for Don't Look Back at All and Lady Me on Thursday, and then hung out because we had Natawesi debuting late Saturday at the Big A. So I was out for training at Belmont Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. And if you can believe it, even when I'm around, that doesn't guarantee that Shug McGahee, of course, is going to train this horse, and the Quality Road at a March Express. It doesn't guarantee that Shug's going to be in a good mood. He can be a little cranky at times. And he wasn't having a great morning when I rolled up to the barn. I did have a black decaf coffee for him, which is how he drinks his coffee. So that was good. I got some brownie points there. But I said, hey, Shug, you're getting two of those big yearlings we bought in book one at Keeneland. And no sooner, big smile, big ear-to-ear grin, which isn't easy to do across his face. And he routed off both with this guy and the Quality Road, like a deep dive of their pedigree. So he was certainly aware, and he had certainly looked at both horses, and in Shug's way was like 10 out of 10 excited to be getting both of these horses next year when they're two.
You know what? When you see him, tell him thank you you're welcome from me and from David. David, I don't know how much you spend time with Shug. Spending time with Shug is a joy, but also a chore sometimes because he's a tough, what have you done for me lately kind of guy. But I'm sure he will talk to you about this colt. And he never says Engordo or Mr. Engordo. It's always David sent this to me, or David did this, etc. And this is the one he sent.
I get along with Shug pretty well because people like him I've grown up with my whole life, and I always figure if I'm not getting yelled at, I'm doing pretty good. So the whole goal is to not get yelled at, and the way to not get yelled at is send two running mother truckers like this in, and now I keep them happy. So
very
anyway,
good.
No.
Okay, gang. We're going to open up the phone lines for anybody who has any follow-up questions, but that's the group. You can text, you can chat, because we had a number to talk about in this second wave and then a couple to revisit from the first week. We did this in about 45 minutes time, which is not bad. But if you have a follow-up question for David or Terry, for anybody else on the team that has seen these horses or dreamed about getting these horses, now would be the time to do it before certainly somebody turns out the lights. What is it, Saturday, David, that this thing finishes up, the Keeneland September yearling sale?
Yeah, today I blocked out some time when we had this call because I knew this section wasn't very good that's coming up. I'll go finish today, and I think other than cleaning out our pod, we're going to be done and wait for the next rodeo, which for me will be Tattersalls.
Very good. Question for David from Doug. Assess the quality of the first part of the second week in general. That's a toughie.
No, it's a great question, but I could give you an easy answer. It's pretty good. There are nice horses today. Horses are bringing more at this stage of the sale. I'm not saying maybe than ever, but it is very competitive. I tried to buy a Get Stormy this morning, and he brought 95,000. The horse stands for a ham sandwich. Good individual, but people want horses. And the second part of the sale is, what we talk about, the middle market or the meat and potatoes market. And I think it's plenty competitive. And, you have to have what people want or they think they want to get it sold. But there's all level of trainers, all geographical areas of the country out here trying to buy horses. Makes me happy because I feel like sometimes we don't look at the positives going on. I think there's a lot of people want to be in the game. They want to be in it the right way, an ethical way. do what's right for the horse's way. And I think that's where we come in. You know, we do all those things, and competition's stiff out there. I'll see. It'd be interesting to see what transpired in the last 45 minutes or an hour down at the ring, but market's pretty good and the horses are good. That's why.
That's a good summary, and I most appreciated for the question, Doug. One from Bill. Bill wants to know from Terry. He reads, I don't know if this is me or it's true. Seems like this is more yearlings than you've ever purchased. What's the philosophy behind that, if that's the case? I think I got that right. Yes.
Yeah. So, Bill, that's a good question. We constantly are trying to gauge the market and to look and to see where our success is coming from, and it's inevitable. You know, we said, well, are we doing better at the yearling sales? And then, right, we have like a big winner, but Woodbine, you know, with a relatively inexpensive, right, son of Cupid, who's a dirt horse, and we win a grade 1 on the grass. So you got to be flexible. I think that's been one of the aspects of our operation that I feel has led to the success we had, is we're not rigid. We don't get locked in. And so last year we bought 19 yearlings, right? This year, we're probably at 23. So it's not that many more. We have the resources now, right? Probably a little bit more than we had in the last 2 years, but we'll take this group. We've had a great start. You know, we'll syndicate these in, short order. We'll continue to look. I'm going to go over to Europe, I think, with David over to the Tattersalls, that sale, which is a great sale to get European pedigrees that we're bringing back. We'll look at the horses off the racetrack, and right then we'll get ready for the 2-year-old sales. But it's the flow never stops. We like that, and there are always good horses on offer. We think we came out of here with a really, really good draft of horses, right? They just have to perform. But our strategy, our outlook is about the same. If anything, we're a little bit heavier on the yearling sales, but we're still going to be very active at the 2-year-old sales as well.
Hope that helps, Bill. Let me check to see if there's any other questions. In the meantime, Terry's heading over with
Jeff.
David to Tattersalls. And I'm heading to the West Coast Sunday night, and I'll be with John Sadler all day Monday looking at Calbreds at the special Calbred sale they have out there on one day on the 26th, which is next Tuesday. If you're in Southern California and you want to have some fun with looking at how John Sadler is assessing and what we're thinking about, we're not going to buy a ton of horses out there because there's going to be the top quality, and that's what we're going to be looking for. But we'd love to have you, and we'll have more on chatter as far as that goes. Terry, do you have something you wanted to follow up with?
No, I think I heard Doc Alker jump on the line.
Yeah, I got a question.
Doc, go ahead.
I got a question, not specifically about any of the horses, but kind of the market in general for David or Terry to answer. It looked to me like even in like the third book, there was a lot of end users. It's pretty typical for the first two books to be mostly end users, but the third and fourth book, there were still a lot of end users buying and not as much names showing up that were pin hookers to the 2-year-old sale. And the prices are obviously pretty strong. So David, how do you see that affecting prices coming in, or the market coming into the 2-year-old sale in the spring?
So there's a third component I'll give you. If you're talking about the end users, pin hookers, there are a lot of outs at this sale, and that's a great thing for the 2-year-old market. So there's a lot of horses that maybe people thought, well, I'm not going to get what I want for it. It has a small blemish. Maybe the sire isn't the flavor of the moment. In the earlier books, you've got some nice pedigrees. Maybe the people got them in the wrong spot. So all of that is going to come back, not all of it, but a large portion of those outs will come back to the 2-year-old sales. And whenever I have seen that in a good market, it makes it great for us scouting the 2-year-old sales, because these horses will come back and we'll get a shot to see them further along. So I think it's a good thing. The pinhookers are doing okay. The people we buy from, quite frankly, are doing well, picking up inventory, which is good. The people that are not getting inventory have not maybe been as successful, or maybe we don't, not the collective we maybe don't buy off them. So the market weeds out the people that maybe shouldn't be pinhooking. And I see that a little bit too here, which to me is another positive from the overall ecosystem of the 2-year-old sales. So succinctly, I am really enthusiastic about next year's 2-year-old sales, and we'll start scouting about December 1 after Thanksgiving, which is probably my first trip to Ocala. We start checking on the ones we bought and looking into what people have for next year.
All right. Well, when you get down here in Ocala, we need to save some time to drink some bourbon, man.
Nope, I'm ready.
Great job,
ready.
guys.
Richard has the cave. He's got the cave and he's got the stock. We know from personal experience. Speaking of which, we will be down. First, our plan is to be down that first Saturday or Friday, Saturday in December to oversee, see the development of all the yearlings that we purchased at various farms down there. We've got them in a number of different spots. They're not all at Eddie's, but we'll probably start off at Eddie's because it's a good breakfast nook kind of place to begin. Then head over to Doc Eisman's and April's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be coming up, and more word on that as we go along in the fall. I'm looking for more questions. I'm glad Richard jumped in, and I'm sorry, Richard, I didn't hear you right off the bat. I want to see if there's anybody who raises their hands. Hey, Zoom user, you raised your hand. Did you want to ask a question? Maybe not. Zoom user sounds pretty generic, and maybe the hand raise is something different. Okay, that might be it. And we are almost at the hour mark. So a good time to kind of take stock, to say thank you to Aaron Birkenauer and Jeff Lowe and to Joe Bianca for specifically the write-ups on all these horses and the descriptions that have helped us give you our best perspective on what we've purchased. And then thank you to the team. And then last, but most, thank you to the partners that have been so supportive up to this point and are now, I'm sure, some of you making some final decisions about the horses that you've seen that we discussed today. If you have follow-up questions. Yeah.
Jeff? Yeah, I had my hand raised. I don't know if it came
Yes.
across.
Yes, go ahead.
No, for David.
User.
That's all right. I don't know what's the matter with my computer. Dave and Gordo, Lady Cadets 23 or not?
We're going to do something. Terry and I are going to figure it out. We may wait for the 2-year-old sales. The one filly's the first one going to Cherie this year is the game winner. We'll probably, I like the 2-year-old sales a little bit, so we might wait for that and put something together.
How about that Vekoma filly you bought relatively inexpensively for Belladonna?
That's a colt.
Oh, colt was it?
Yeah.
Are some of those going to be made available to West Point, or?
I've got to see what we're going to do. Terry and I are talking about it, so we're trying to figure that out.
Work in progress.
And then Hip 15. Did you guys talk about that earlier? The gun runner filly.
Yes. Well, we didn't, but she sold out quickly, and want to tell everybody that got involved with her how, she was certainly stunning and gorgeous and compelling. Jeff, did you want David to opine as well too on how awesome she is?
Well, I'm in for 5%, so I'd like to hear how great she is.
David, 30 seconds or less, tell Jeff he's going to be okay.
I'm going to give you 100% certification on your 5% that she is a very nice horse. I don't remember. I know I was busy the last time we had the call. I was on for briefly, and I have 45 seconds left in my spiel. But she was one we found on the farm. got her early in the sale. It was a very, very, very good buy for what they came later on selling by the sire. We've had tremendous luck with them in West Point so far with Vava, and we'll continue to do so. And this is a good one. So, as usual, Mr. Silver is in the right spot.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
shocked. I'm shocked in light of Vava, your wife didn't get this one. I'm disappointed.
Talk to your account manager.
Thank you, Jeff.
Talk with him. Yeah.
And thank you to the rest of the partners for contributing, Richard and Bill and Doug. Thank you. And we will see everybody sooner rather than later. We got one coming up later on tonight, King's Ovation. We'll see everybody at the races throughout the weekend. And as I have been known to do most recently, I also say, go Cards. We're playing Boston College at 3:30 on Saturday. All the best, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. See you.